Hello and welcome. This is Miss Sarah, your lecturer in Principles of Teaching 1 course. With today's lesson, you are expected to write a sample learning objective following the SMART criteria. It is very important to get your objectives right. The objectives need something that you understand and is useful to you. It also needs to be something that another teacher can understand if they are going to cover your lesson. But don't forget that we are going to show the learning objectives to our students, and if the language is too complicated, they can get very confused. Therefore, the objectives should be something that the students can understand, and so you may even need to reword them before putting them on the board for your students. In order to make sure that your learning objectives are going to work, we need to do a SMART test on them. You basically need to check that your objectives are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-related. Take note that a SMART goal is an effective goal. So let's look at making specific objective. If our aim is to learn about the baking tools and equipment, we might want to write an objective which says, students will do a test about baking tools. Do a test is not specific, and another teacher covering your lesson wouldn't know what the test was supposed to be about. It is also something that the students will do. It is important that your objectives deal with learning. So we can change this to students will classify the different baking tools according to their uses. This is much clearer and also shows what you expect your students to learn. It is extremely important that your objectives are measurable. This means that you can actually carry out some form of assessment to check that your objectives have been met. If your aim was to learn about the different baking tools, you might want to write the objectives as students will understand the uses of baking tools. But with the word understand, we have no way to test whether a student has understood something. So, we can change this to students will give at least one use of the measuring tools in baking. In this way, students will state a function of the measuring tools and you can check that it is correct. Next, we need to make your objectives achievable. If we are trying to teach students to identify all the baking tools and equipment, we can say, students will name and explain the uses of all the baking tools and equipment. This will definitely help and force them to identify all the baking tools and equipment and be able to explain their uses. But it is like climbing a mountain in one go. Mountain climbers always plan their ascent in stages. So, we need to chunk the lesson into smaller, manageable parts as well. So instead of saying, name and explain the uses of all the baking tools and equipment, we chunk the lesson into smaller and manageable parts and can get the students to identify and name the function of cutting tools used in baking. Now, we need to make sure our objectives are relevant. If we are trying to teach our students how to mount the mixing bowl into the electric mixer, we might say, the students will learn how to use electric mixer. Even though this is related to the use of electric mixer, it has nothing to do with mounting the mixing bowl into the electric mixer, and therefore, it is not relevant. So instead, we can say, students will be able to assemble and adjust a bowl safely into the lift mixer. By relevant, we mean something that is related to the aim of the learning goal. Finally, we need to make sure our objectives are time-related. We do this by saying, by the end of the class session, the students will be able to. With this, we mean something that the student can finish within the specified time allocation. So now let's take a look at the words you should and should not be using when writing learning objectives. Words like understand, know, feel, appreciate, and awareness of, and students will learn are not good in objectives. This is because they are not measurable. If you take understand, for example, students would need to do something else to show that they have understood. It is the thing that they do that you need to write in your objectives. Therefore, you should be using words like define, demonstrate, identify, create, state, and list. Each of these are tangible things that you can get students to do, and therefore you can measure. Thank you very much and have a great day.